All right, everyone, welcome back, and let's get started right away. Just something to think about here. Here's a story. Each sheet of this photo album holds 9 photos. So imagine that's a book. Continue on. Every page has 9 photos on it. Actually, that one has 8. Oh well. So let's say Sarah has 326 photos. How many sheets will she need? How many different ways could you find out that answer? All right, let's pretend that 3 children have to share $1.25 equally. How much does each child going to get? So we're going to change $1.25 into 125 cents because that'll be easier to work with. When you get in higher grades, you'll learn how to do that with the decimal. But for now, we'll change it to 125 cents. So we're going to divide 125 divided by 3. So 125, we're going to use base 10 here. We'll try it with a base 10. So 125. Okay, so if once I do this, the problem that's going to be happening here is how do I divide this guy into 3 equal parts? I can't. And in fact, this one too, I only have 2. How do I divide them in 3 equal parts? So what we're going to do is we're going to change this guy into 10. So I'm going to bring all of this over here, and then I'm going to change this 100 block into 10 rods, and that'll be a little bit easier to deal with. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm dividing this into 3 equal groups. So I'm going to start with the rods here. So we'll do columns here. So here, 3 equal groups. Okay, so that seems to work. They divide evenly. So there's 4 in each group. Now I have to divide these equally. I got a problem here. I have 2 1s left over. Can I divide that? No, I can't. So what we're going to do is we're going to say these are our 3 equal groups. And remember, a rod equals 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1. So 41. Each child is going to get 41 cents, but there's 2 cents left over. So the answer here is they're each going to receive 41 cents, or I could write it like this. And there's a remainder of 2. That means 2 pennies. We can't divide it. It just gets left over. It's impossible what to do with that. So remainder 2, we say. And we use the letter R to indicate remainder. What's left over that we couldn't divide. Okay, so other than that strategy, base 10 blocks, which is a strategy to divide, but it's not necessarily the most effective or fastest way to do it, but it's a good visual if you're having trouble. But I want to go over some different strategies to divide a 3-digit number, or the dividend, by a 1-digit number, which is called the divisor. And remember, the answer is called the, everyone yell it out, quotient. Okay, so let's talk about something called long division, and I'm sure you've heard of long division. This is what we could probably call the traditional method. I learned this in school. Your parents probably learned this in school. But there's pros and cons to all the different ways I'm going to show you. So first of all, long division. So you're given the problem, let's say 182 divided by 9. Well, you can't set up your question like that. So this is the division, a division symbol. But to do a problem like this, we have to go like this. And it's kind of like this weird bracket thing here, okay? And so we put the dividend here, and the divisor here, and the quotient is going to end up on top here. I know it's kind of strange, but someone made this up. I don't know who it was, so don't blame me. So in order to do long division, you need to know your multiplication facts really, really well. And when I say really well, like dead on. Because if you make any mistakes, you can't do it. So what you need to do is you need to say to yourself, can 9 times something equal 1? No, it cannot. The closest we can do is 9 times 1, and that's 9. So that's not going to work. So we're going to look at, we can put an X here, just to indicate that we've done that digit, but we can't do anything about it. So let's look at the next 2 digits. Can 9 go into 18? Well, I need to know exactly. Yes, 9 times 2 is 18, so I put a 2 up there. And what I need to do after, I'm going to get rid of these lines here. What I need to do is I need to subtract what 9 times 2 is from there. And that is 0. That actually works out pretty well. And so then you're left with a 0. Now, we're no longer dealing with 18. We're dealing with this 0 here. 9 can't times something to equal 0. That's impossible. So what we need to do here is we need to bring down this 2. Well, can 9, so because it can't happen, we put a 0 there. And so can 9 go into 2? No, it cannot. So we can say the answer here is 20 remainder 2. Now, there is a way of double checking to make sure that we always get our answer right. So we multiply right here, 9 times 20. 9 times our answer. 9 times 20 is 180. Do the 9 times 2 is 18. Add the 1 0, 180. I just need to add my remainder 2. I add my remainder 2 to it, and that is 182. So that is the correct answer. Now the pros and cons here. Pro here is a lot of people know this way, teachers and your parents, so they can help you. A con to this method is you need to know your multiplication facts really well. And if you know it, this might be a really effective way of doing it. But if you're a little shaky on your multiplication facts or you're not very quick at it, I don't recommend this method. It's not a method that's that's easy to deal with if you're not confident. All right, here we go. Short division. Now, short division is exactly the same as long division, but a lot of it, actually I was going to say most of it, happens mentally in your head. If you're even better at your multiplication facts and your subtraction facts in your head, this is definitely the quickest method, I think. So that's a pro here. Short division could be the quickest method of doing it. Con, if you have lots on your mind, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. If you can't give it your full attention, it's not going to be the way to go. So because I didn't really give you a good sense of what long division looked like with the last question, I'm gonna do both at the same time here. Okay. Now, for both you set up the same way. But for short division, it might be advisable to write maybe a little bit bigger or spread out a little bit more because you're going to write in between numbers. So back to long division here. So this is the long, this is the short. I'm going to say, can I do 6 times something equals 2? Well, no, 6 times 1 is the lowest we can go, and that's higher than 2. If you need to, put a little X there to remind you that you've done that too. But 6 times what is the highest we can go without going over 23. And that's kind of the catch with some of these long and short divisions. You have to know your multiplication so well that you need to go, what is the highest I can go without going over? Well, 6 times 4 is 24, and that is 24 is higher than 23. So 6 times 3 is the closest we can do. So I'm going to write that there. And so 6 times 3, I'm going to subtract, is 18. So I'm going to need to borrow, so that becomes a 1. 13 minus 8 is 5. 1 minus 1 is 0. Now, can I do 6 into 5? I can't, but I can bring this 0 down to help me. And so how much can 6 go into without going over 50? Well, 6 times 10, that's definitely over. 6 times 9, that's 54, that's over. So 6 times 8, 48, that's the best one we got. So I'm writing it over the 0, and I'm going to subtract 48, and I'm left with 2. 6 cannot go into 2, so we're done. So the answer is 38, remainder 2. Now, going to short division, we are going to do exactly what we just did in long division, but we're going to do it in our head. So 6 cannot go into 2, but 6 can go into 23, and it can go in 3 times. And in my head, I'm going to go 23 minus 18. 23 minus 18 is 5. And what I'm going to do with that little 5 is I'm going to write it there. And I'm going to call this a 50. I'm going to look at that as like a 50. That 5 and that 0. So 6 can go into 50. We just learned 8 times, which is 48. And there is a remainder of 2. So short division, you're doing all that subtraction inside your head. And that's why if you have a really good mental math thing going on where you can concentrate and you know your facts well, this is definitely the quickest method. If you are not confident or you're a little slow on this, or you can't, you didn't get much sleep, I wouldn't recommend going this route. It's going to be too confusing, and you're going to make lots of mistakes. And again, we can double check our answers here. So 6 times 38. Well, I'm going to write it this way. So that's 48. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 4 is 228. Plus that 2, remainder 2, is 230. So that is correct. Okay. The next method I'm going to show you is called repeated subtraction, sometimes also known as, aka the big 7, or the partial quotient method. I will refer to it as repeated subtraction because we're going to subtract a lot. This is my #1 recommended method. This is my pro. Well, pro, Mr. Hardy likes it. But pro is you can choose any numbers to multiply and it can work. Okay, so you can work at your own pace. You can choose numbers that work, and sometimes the numbers you choose might make it go longer, but if you're not strong in your multiplication facts, I highly recommend this method. This is the #1 method to do. Maybe a con for this one, it could take a little longer, but it's going to probably guarantee you to get the right answer. So to do this one, it's going to look similar to the setup of long and short division. So 328 divided by 4, but you kind of make this kind of 7. That's why it's sometimes called the big 7. And so I'm going to put 328 inside. Now, the key to repeated subtraction is knowing your multiples of 10. If you know your multiples of 10, we did that in a previous lesson. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back a few lessons and you should find out how to multiply by 10 really well, or anything with a 0. So I need to say, what can I multiply that's lower than 328? And usually you start with the number, I always start with the number 100. Can I multiply 4 times 100? I can't, because 4 times 100 is 400, so that's too high. But I could do 50. Now 4 times 50, if I don't know what to do, well, what's half of 100? A half of 100, because we're doing half, 50 is half of 100. 4 times 50 is 200. So 4 times 50 is 200. So I'm going to subtract my 200. And so I have an 8, a 2, and a 1. Can I do 4 times 50 again? No, that's 200 is too high. But I could choose, how about 10? It doesn't really matter. As long as it's lower, 4 times 10 is 40. So I can subtract that. And I get 48. Well, can I do, 88. Can I do that again? I could, but maybe just because I know, maybe I should do 4 times 20. 4 times 20 is 80, so I can subtract 80, and I get an 8 there. Well, 4 can go into 8 how many times? 4 times 2 is 8, and I'm left with 0. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add up all these numbers in the side column. 50 plus 10 plus 20. So 50 plus 10 is 60, plus 20 is 80, plus 2 is 82. So our answer here is 328 divided by 4 is 82. I'm going to double check my work. 82 times 4 is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. 328. So the reason why I think this one's good is because the numbers you choose in this column, whatever you're multiplying by, no matter what you choose, as long as it's lower than this number or whatever you've been, this number, you're going to be fine. You can multiply 4 times 1 forever. I mean, it'll take you 82 times, but if you want, 4 times 1 is 4, subtract 4 each time, that'll work. It's going to take a long time, but so the pro here is you choose the numbers you want to multiply by and you just subtract them off. All right, the last method I want to show you here is called the rectangle method. And so to do the rectangle method, you're probably going to have to draw a rectangle. So we'll start like so, and then we're going to put a times sign here because multiplication and division are related. And so I'm going to put the one number that I'm multiplying by, or and that I'm dividing by, and I'm going to put the 729 here, and I'm going to draw 3 columns. And in the first column here, you don't need to do this, but we're dealing with the hundreds. This column, we're going to deal with the tens. And this column here, we're going to deal with the ones. And so what we're going to do here is, it's going to be similar to long division in some ways. I need to know what I can multiply without going over. So for this method, you need to be good with your multiples of 10 multiplication, and you need to know how high you can go without going over. What can I multiply 2 by without going over 729? Well, 2 times 200 is 400. I can go higher than that. 2 times 300 is 600. And 2 times 400 is 800. So that's too high. So I can do 300. And I'm going to subtract that. 2 times 300 is 600. And I can subtract this. And I'm left with 129. I'm going to move this 129 over into the tens column. You don't have to draw that arrow, but you can do that. Now, what can 2 multiply by without going over 129? And we're going to do it by a multiple of 10. Well, 2 times 10 is 20. That's way too low. 2 times 60? 2 times 60 is 120. So I can do that. So 120. And I'm going to subtract. I'm left with 9. I'm going to move that 9 over. 2 times what? Can be, what's the highest I can go up to 9? 4. 2 times 4 is 8. I'm going to subtract that. I'm left with a 1. Now, that 1 is going to be a remainder, so I can put that there, remainder 1. And I'm going to add these up. 300 plus 60 plus 4 is 364, remainder 1. And so we're going to double check our work. That's always good. I'm going to multiply 364 times 2. Times 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 6 times 2 is 12. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 728. Plus I add that 1 is 729. Okay, so we've looked at 5 different methods. The first method was those base 10 blocks. We looked at long division, short division, repeated subtraction, and this rectangle method. Hopefully one of these clicks with you a little bit better than the others. I want to give you some options here because let's try something here. Darth Vader has a problem. And I created this problem because Rogue One just came out on DVD. Sorry to date this video, but Star Wars on my brain. Anyways, the Emperor told him that he needs to divide up the 501st Legion into 9 groups. There was 480 stormtroopers total in the 501st Legion. How many stormtroopers will be in each group? So I'm going to get you to pause it here. I want you to help Darth Vader out, and I want to find an answer. So there's 480 stormtroopers total. He has to divide them into 9 groups. How many stormtroopers will be in each group? Use one of the methods I showed you, and press play when you're ready to go. Okay, I'm not going to show you with base 10 blocks because I don't think that's necessarily an effective way or a quick way to do it and to take up your time. But you could use 4 bricks with 8 rods, split them up into 9 groups. You could do that. You'd have to trade some in. But I'm gonna show you a few different methods here. So long division, 480 divided by 9. So 9 cannot go into 4. So I'm going to put X there. But 9 can go into 48. And 9 times 5 is 45. That's the closest I can get without going over. I'm going to subtract that. I get a 3. 9 cannot go into 3, so I'm going to bring down this 0 and it becomes a 30. 9 can go into 30 3 times, which is 27. That's the highest I can go without going over. I'm left with a 3. So I have 53 remainder 3. If you do short division, that would look like so. 9 can't go into 4, but 9 can go into 48. Again, 5 times in my head. 48 minus 45 is 3. That becomes a 30. 9 can go into 30. 3 times, and I'm left with a remainder 3. If I do repeated subtraction, I have 9 480. And this is going to look different for all of you because you're all going to come up with different numbers. But let's say, well, I'm going to start with 100. 9 times 100, too high. 9 times 50, what's half of that? Well, 9 times 50, sorry, I'm going to use a different color. 9 times 50 is 450, which will get me 30 left over. Let's pretend I don't know my 9 times tables that well. Let's say 9 times 1. Well, 9 times 1 is 9. That'll leave me at 21. Let's say I do again. Subtract another one. I'm just trying to show you that it doesn't really matter what you pick. Here I'm left with 18, 12. Well, I'm going to do 1 again, and I'm left with 3. So I add this all up. 50 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 53, remainder 3. Okay, lastly, the box method here, the rectangle method, draw that. I'm going to put 9, 480. 9 times what is the highest and go over? 9 times 100. I can't do that. I can't do 9 times 100. And this is the hundreds box. So I'm going to move all of this over into the tens box. So 9 times 50. 9 times 50. That's an ugly 5. 9 times 50. 450. Leaves me a 30. I move the 30 over here. 9 times 3, 27. 3 left over, remainder 3. Okay, so you may not be Darth Vader. You may not have to divide stormtroopers into 9 equal groups, but you can see here that in life you might have to divide things into equal groups, and eventually you're gonna learn how to divide larger numbers. And here we have a number in the hundreds, all the way up to almost 999. You need to be able to divide that into equal groups. I've showed you 5 methods: the base 10 method, long division, short division, repeated subtraction, and the rectangle method. Hopefully one of those resonated with you better than others, and you could use that to find your answers quickly, because you all learn differently, so choose the one that works best for you. All right, guys, please remember, in Star Wars life, math happens. Take care.